different kind of power. And our centering question is, why is Nathan asking Bathsheba to go? Why is Nathan asking Bathsheba to go? All right, we're going to get to that in a minute. And our centering song this morning, some of you may be familiar with the song. It's a song sung by Maxwell. It's called A Woman's Work. And sometimes it just takes a woman. I know we're talking a lot this month about Women's History Month, but sometimes it takes a woman. In the song, Maxwell is actually, the songwriter is talking about the birth of a child and how men have to stand outside when this happens. We can do a lot of things to my men now, but one thing we can't do. It says, I know you've got a little life in you yet. I know you got a lot of strength left. I should be crying, but I just can't let it show. I should be hoping, but I can't stop thinking. All the things we should have said that I never said. All the things we should have done that we never did. All the things we should have given, but I didn't. Oh, darling, make it go away. And I love the way Maxwell really puts that songs together. All right. I'm looking for something here. There you go. All right. So first of all, notice in our story, the celebration that's going on. David's health is declining. David has gotten up in age. His songs have changed a little bit. He's singing. He's gone from singing, "Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto thee. Lord, you are my rock, my sword, and my shield." His songs have changed just a little bit. He's now singing, if anybody asks you where I'm going. If anybody asks you where I'm going, tell them for me, I'm going up yonder. And if you keep on living, that song will eventually start to make sense. And while David's health is declining, Adonijah is having a party. Adonijah is his eldest son. It says Adonijah is out there barbecuing. He's got the cattle, the sheep, and the fatted calves all on the grill at the same time, singing, "This is how we do it. This is how we do it." And the reason Adonijah is having a party is because he has now proclaimed himself as the new king of Israel. If you see there in the map right there, we see the kingdom of David at the time. This is before the kingdom splits into two, the northern and southern kingdom. But Adonijah has self-proclaimed. People will do you like that. I mean, David isn't dead yet. And his son, his eldest son, was already talking about taking over the kingdom. Boy, you got to watch people. Boy, I tell you, you got to watch people. Not only do we see the celebration, but notice here the confrontation. And it begins with Nathan's question. When Nathan hears about the celebration, when Nathan hears about the coronation, we see the confrontation. Nathan goes to Bathsheba. Y'all remember Bathsheba? And he goes to Bathsheba and says, "Have you heard that Adonijah has made himself king?" And then Nathan goes on to add, and David, King David, knows nothing about it. He's asking Bathsheba, has she heard? And that's his question, but along with his question comes some advice. Nathan's advice, he says, I'm going to give you a plan. Now, this is Nathan. You remember the one that went to David, right? Said, thou art the man, that same Nathan. He's going to Bathsheba now. He says, let me give you a plan that will save your life and Solomon. Now, where Nathan's getting this information from, I don't know. Plan, save your life. Here's a plan to save your life and Solomon. Now, go to David and say, this is what I want you to say. This is what Nathan tells Bathsheba to say. Did you not promise that Solomon will be king? Isn't that what you promised? You promised me that Solomon will be king. And then Nathan says, and I will come in and add to what you say. This is Nathan, the prophet. He's got a plan. All right, this is where I'm struggling. Before we go any further, this is my struggle this morning. This is what has me flat up against the wall. I can't move. We see Nathan's question. We hear Nathan's advice. But my question is, what is or what are Nathan's motives? Why does Nathan ask Bathsheba to go? Almost seems like a theological crime about to occur here. We're talking about Nathan the prophet, the one that said that thou art the man. Does Nathan no longer have the ear of the king? Has Nathan perhaps lost his anointing? Why is he going to Bathsheba when the person that really needs to be talked to is David? And why is Nathan asking Bathsheba to go? Further, will she respond? I'm talking about Bathsheba now. Because remember, she has spent her whole life, if you ask me now, she spent her whole life cleaning up his mess. I'm talking about David. All of the problems, believe it or not, woo, Lord Jesus, all of her problems have been caused by this one man, this one fella. Think about it. The loss of her first husband, she's still grieving that. I know she is. And the loss of her first son, all because of who? That's right. And now she's about to lose her second husband. And according to Nathan, if she doesn't do something, there's a chance she'll lose her second son. If Nathan the prophet is aware of all this, why is he asking Bathsheba to go? What can she say? I'm talking about Bathsheba. What can she say that the prophet of God cannot say? You mean to tell me Nathan doesn't have another little story that can get David's attention? All right, that's where I'm struggling at this morning, and if you can, please. Investigation. Then we have to start calling it crime scene investigation. I don't know, but thank you so much. All right, well, thank God this is not how the story ends with um, the goal of Nathan. The goal of Nathan. We've seen the celebration, we've seen the confrontation, uh, and now we'll see what we call the cooperation. Notice that um, for Bathsheba, who has been in the shadows most of her life, she's been described as the one that David committed adultery with. What a reputation to have. But notice how God works with God's leaders. Notice that she goes from private pain to public power. Talking about Bathsheba now. She takes Nathan's advice. She goes and she talks to David, and she gets in the room. She says, "You promised that Solomon would be king," and she's not afraid. Wow, to speak truth to power. Ooh, she's not afraid. She goes from private pain. Again, she's all this pain, all of her problems have been caused by this one guy, this one man. But she's not afraid to speak truth to power. She goes from private pain to public power. And then also she goes from a place of perplexity, ooh, to a place of prominence. We're talking about Bathsheba. Um, Nathan, um, Bathsheba leaves. She talks to David. She leaves, and then Nathan comes in and did just what he promised he would do. He comes in and adds to what Bathsheba says. And after David hears Nathan, then David sends for Bathsheba again. She goes from a place of perplexity to a place of prominence. Sometimes God needs a hammer, and then sometimes God needs a scalpel. And David calls her back into his presence, and he says to her, what you said is true. She goes from private pain to public power, from place of perplexity, a life living in the shadows, to a place of prominence, And finally, from the story, we find that she also uh, lives a life from pushback to payback for her son. Her eldest son was trying to, if Adonijah did ascend to the throne, there's no doubt he would have killed Bathsheba and Solomon. And so she goes from pushback to payback. Boy, this is good stuff right here. David says, "As the Lord liveth, and the oath that I swore to you," Solomon, watch this. Solomon was declared king on that day. All because it started with Bathsheba being, like Paul said, hearing Nathan's voice and obeying what she believes is the will of God. And she goes in and she speaks truth to power, and Solomon is declared king on that same day. She goes from pushback to payback. And then later on in the story, a few verses down, after Solomon becomes king, Solomon sits on his throne and he asks that another throne is brought in and declares her as queen mother to the throne. You know, this is Women's History Month. This is where we're going with this. Women have always spoken truth to power. They did it then, and they're doing it now. The three takeaways this morning is first of all, recognize the confrontation. They realize in terms of what the problem is, and she realizes it is Adonijah. And then leaders also realize their part in the situation. Everybody plays a part. Nathan helped her understand that it is her and her alone that must go in first and speak to David. And not only does she recognize the confrontation, realize their part in the situation, but what leaders do is, a leader will do is rises to the occasion. All right, that's all I got. That's all I got this morning. Thank you for sharing. It's been a good centering moment this morning. All right, and I close with a very familiar hymn that somebody may be feeling this way. Maybe a leader trying to figure out how we're going to overcome all of the challenges. But the songwriter says, I am weak and I need thy strength and power. It realizes the state that we're in. Mm-hmm. I am weak and I need thy strength and power to help me over my weakest hour. Boy, I feel like preaching this. And lead me through the darkness, thy face to see. Lead me, O Lord, lead me. I don't know who I'm preaching to this morning, but you can join along with me in saying, lead me, guide me. I wish the choir was here. Along the way.
Go ahead, Dr. C.
For if you lead me, I cannot stray. Come on, somebody. Lord, let me walk each day with thee. Lead me, oh Lord, lead me. One more time. Lead me. Somebody needs that this morning.
Lead me.
My God.
Guide me along the way.
Cleaning up other folk mess.
Lord, if you lead me, I won't stray.
That's all right. That's right. Lord, let me
walk this day by day. Lead me, guide me along the way. Hallelujah.
All right, gotta